We'll be checking out how Kamaru Usman spent his first $1 million in the UFC. And if you don't know who he is one of the best fighters in the UFC. He is currently champion.
Hello? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's me. Pound for pound. Best in the world. Yeah, yeah, it's me. What's up, GQ Sports? This is Kamaru Usman, aka the Nigerian Nightmare, and this is how I made, spent, and saved my first million.
By the way, what's interesting about Kamaru Usman is that when he first started out in terms of the MMA UFC, he was basically making no money, like at all, like poverty level.
I was born and raised in a bit ouchy Nigeria. We farmed and immigrated here to the States at about 8 years old. Growing up, we learned a lot of money lessons from my parents. One of my first real hustle was flipping Pokemon cards.
Now that's pretty cool. 1999 to 2001 Pokemon card dealer. That's pretty funny.
So I found a good supplier where I could buy the collection of cards, about $6, $7, and I would get one or two rare cards in there that I would turn around and flip for about 25, sometimes even 40, depending on the scarcity of that card. So that was my hustle. Everybody had a good Christmas that year. After leaving college, got an opportunity to be a coach on season 14 of The Ultimate Fighter. As it comes full circle, I end up on the season 21. So I end up winning that season. Started my UFC career. Making that transition was probably one of the scariest decisions. I've been doing wrestling for a long, long time. Wrestling was still control. I knew how to defend myself. But now going all the way into this completely new sport was nerve wracking. I was scared of it, but I was courageous towards it. And I've had to, of course, have different jobs. While wrestling, I worked at Applebee's. It was a fun job. I worked with some.
And here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of like pro wrestlers, like in the Olympics or just like in terms of just being a professional wrestler, they don't make like any money really at all unless you are the top like three wrestlers in the whole United States, right? And yeah, you could probably make some money coaching, but not really that much, right? Especially probably back then. So, like, he was kind of like in that situation where he wasn't really making really any money. And that's crazy when you really think about it. Because imagine if you were getting your face hit and not really making that much money. Like, that would be crazy.
Very, very fun people out there in Nebraska. It really helped me understand working for your money. Then once I got more and more into MMA, my first fight I made 1-1, which is good. And first fight, 1,000, 1,000. My opponent missed.
So, if you guys did not hear that, he literally said for his first fight ever in MMA, he got paid 1,000, 1,000. Like 1,000 to show, 1,000 to win. How crazy is that?
His weight, so I got, I think, an extra $250 from him. So fast forward a few years.
But think about that, right? So he only got paid like $2,250 for his first ever fight. Imagine risking breaking your nose, damaging your eyes to where you maybe not be able to see again, potentially even death for $2,250. Think about that for a second. That is crazy.
I made my first million.
And the crazy thing about this, right? I don't think Kamaru Usman made the $1 million until he fought someone, even when he was a champion, until he fought someone that had a lot of publicity around them. I have a feeling he did not make like $1 million like in a fight until he probably fought someone maybe like Jorge Masvidal, just because of the publicity around it. Okay, won Tough 21 plus performance bonus. Defeated RDA at Tough 28 finale plus performance bonus.
My
co-headlined UFC 35 and won UFC welterweight
First
championship.
fight in the UFC was a good one because I ended up getting the bonus, just an extra 50,000. So I'm like, I'm rich, I'm rich. The fight that really broke it for me and hit me and let me know, oh wow, we're making a little bit of money now. I would say it was my Sean Strickland fight. I don't know, walking around,
Okay, okay.
maybe like almost 70 bands. I'm like, oh, that's more than a teacher's salary. I'm good. I'm rich. So that was the first fight that I had a significant cushion in life.
Okay, so basically, that was the first fight where he was like, okay, I could actually make a living from fighting full time. Which honestly goes to show you how crazy the whole UFC pay structure thing is that you might have to rely on like bonuses simply to really survive until you get big enough to actually consistently make good money. Like that's crazy because for those people that don't know, I think when you're starting off in the UFC, you only make like $15,000 to show up and like maybe $15,000 to win. So $30,000 for that fight, and some people only fight like once per year because they take so much damage in the fight. So, it's by the way, you gotta pay your coach, you gotta pay your training people, you gotta pay for all the food and all that kind of stuff. It's like, wow.
So my second headline fight, which was RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos. I think that was the first time I seen six figures. That Tuesday, when that direct deposit hit the account, oh, I just stared at the account.
Okay, so that's when he started to actually make some pretty good money.
Stared at
Okay.
those zeros. Oh man, I'm here. So when you become a champion, you're not just a fighter, you're a business partner. And business has been good.
Yeah, so for people that don't understand, when you are like a champion in the UFC, when you fight and you have a pay-per-view, you end up getting like a percentage of the sales of that pay-per-view. So you could end up, depending on how big of the audience of the pay-per-view buyers are, you could potentially walk away with like a seven-figure paycheck just from the pay-per-view buys from your cut.
I'm not exactly at liberty to tell you exactly what I made, but with the performances that I've been putting on lately, I have to say these are starting to stack up a little bit more. Cool. All right, so we talked about how I made my first million. Now let's talk about how I spent my first million. Well, my daughter's birthday was the first big purchase. I had to go big. So between that and I bought a nice white Nissan Maxima. So a combination of both cost me about 30,000. It was just such an extravagant party. We had everything, we had catered food.
The only thing with like buying a brand new car, there's like nothing wrong with buying a brand new car because obviously he's making really good money now. The only thing is, if this was like any other time in history, buying that car's value would immediately go down in price. Nowadays, who knows? He might have spent 30K on that car however many years ago. It might be worth probably around the same amount today, just because of how crazy the car market is.
Grandma's like a party planner. She's amazing with kids and parties. At the time, no, the Nissan Maxima wasn't the dream car. The Nissan Maxima was the flyest car in that budget range. So I was young.
And that's good. He had set up a budget, which is nice.
My uncle was always, if you had a little bit of change, you was balling in the Maxima. Actually, they were balling in the Ultimas. The Maxima was a step up. I felt real bossy driving my Maxima. The next purchase was a Rolex. I would say all in all, with the tax and everything, the shipping, it was close to about 20,000. After
$20,000 for a Rolex. That's kind of a lot for a watch.
RDA fight, going into the Woodley fight, it was just something about my manifestation with the work that I put in. I'm about to become a world champion, so I need to look like a world champion. I need that Rolex.
Okay, so basically he was kind of like using it to mentally set himself up into the mindset of, oh, I'm already going to be champion, so I might as well look like it. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. That being said, I mean, still, 20 grand on a Rolex, like on a watch in general, when technically speaking, when's the last time you actually looked at your watch to tell time, unless it was a digital watch? Something to think about.
So my coach and his wife took me to a jeweler in Florida, and I was able to go in and see all the watches, and I'm like, yo, I like this. And I go over to the Rolex, and I see the big presidential. I'm like, I want that. And then they showed me the price tag. I was like, nah, I want the other one. I want that one. I found one that was just beautiful. It was nice. It went with everything, and it just made me feel that feeling.
Now, the one good thing about Rolexes, to be fair, is that they do tend to last for a very long time. They're pretty darn sturdy watches, and they typically do hold their value pretty well. That being said, again, you're spending $20,000 on something that you probably never actually look at the time for.
Each and every fight, I make sure that my trainers, my coaches are taken care of because they make a lot of sacrifices for me to give me that time and really give me that extra special attention. So after fights, I always want to make sure that I deviate at least 20% on the side for them, and I always want to make sure that they're taken care of and that they feel appreciated for the time.
Now, the thing is, you might be seeing the 20%. 20% is a lot of how much you potentially make. Not to mention, you also got to pay taxes. Not to mention, you also got to pay so many other fees, right? Insurance, all this other kind of stuff, right? And this is one of the reasons why a lot of these fighters also end up going broke and also having to basically come out of retirement to fight again because a lot of their money ends up going to taxes and coaches and managers. We're not even mentioning the manager side to this.
The work and the effort that they put into it. So I would say about all in all, allocate about 20%, so about 200,000 that I take care of.
But again, that being said, that is basically what is allowing him to actually become better and make more money is having these coaches, trainers, and all that kind of stuff. So it makes sense to pay them really well. But I still don't necessarily like the idea of these fighters giving a pretty big percentage to these gyms, these coaches, and all that kind of stuff, right? It's like that's a little bit disturbing, right? At least to me.
Most important thing for me is my daughter making sure that she's good. So she's in a private school, so each year that runs me about close to 10 to 15.
Now, that is something that I don't necessarily understand. Why are you putting your kid into private school? Like, what is the difference between private school and public school? Like, what is the difference? Are you sure she's getting a better education? Is she actually utilizing it to the best of her abilities? Like, what is she actually getting from the private school?
18,000. She's in the second grade, so all in all, allocating almost 30.
Second grade, and you're spending $10,000 to $15,000 a year for private school? That is such a waste of money at that time. Because something to really like think about, right? You could, with that money that he's spending, do homeschooling and have really good teachers come by his house and teach his kid some really elevated stuff that she would never learn in school, like ever, right? Like, why are you like tossing this money towards a private school for what, like the next 18 years? For what, right?
30,000, but to my daughter, she's worth it. She used to always like hit mitts with me in the garage, and she already told me, she said, with a little attitude in her eyes, you know I'm gonna be a fighter. I'm like, I don't want you to be a fighter. I want you to be a doctor. She goes, well, I don't know. We'll see. That's how she answered me. I don't know. We'll see. Don't really have a dream school for her, but as an immigrant, I understand which schools I would like for her to go to. It sounds better
Which the funny thing is, the amount of money that he's spending on private school per year, if he put her in public school, by the time that she would actually be old enough to graduate high school, to go to college, right? If she studied really hard, she could get a full ride there, or he would have actually had the money saved up to literally just pay for all the years in one of these schools. Because the amount of money that he's spending per year right now would be able to cover those tuition of those schools. Like, it's crazy.
500,000, half a million. That was the house. I ain't really get into any pool, but somebody cuts my grass.
$500,000 for a house out of the first million. The thing is, we also gotta keep in mind he probably also has a bunch of sponsorships as well. He's not only getting paid by the UFC, so still $500,000 out of a million for one item, like a house, that's a lot.
We got that. I bought it after last fight, so everything's been getting like the designer's been sending stuff over. I just was able to spend the first night in it. It was a good feeling. Everything I always heard, yeah, you got the money in the market, you gotta invest, and then this, invest. I'm like, alright, I didn't really know what I was doing. So a friend introduced me to some lady who invests for me. So she approaches me, we have a conversation, we talk. She was attractive, of course. Nothing happened on that front, but she was attractive, so it was very easy to be distracted. Give her about almost 60,000. I haven't seen that money since. Yeah.
Wow. Getting distracted by females to that degree that you gave her 60 grand for nothing? And this is the thing, right? I mean, a lot of these fighters, they could easily do things with their money, right? They could easily buy a house, rent it out for the monthly cash flow. They could easily put money into like the S&P 500 and literally just not let anyone touch it or manage it, and it'll just grow over time. Like, nobody needs to be complicated with their investing. Like, you don't gotta be complicated. Just do index funds, and you'll be able to grow it consistently without really having to pay someone a percentage of your money and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think I did my due diligence as far as the homework and the research behind this person. Gave her about 60 bands and just flew away.
That's sad.
So after that one, I had a pretty bad taste in my mouth for investing, but somehow was talked into investing again. This time I was around some wise people. I went in on the market myself this time. Invested another 30K, which is paid off big time.
And this is the thing that, again, bothers me. What we're seeing that's just like a pretty common trend for all these athletes, they spend so much of their money in ratio of their $1 million that is so disturbing. And the reason why I say it's so disturbing is because the amount of money that they invested is basically nothing in comparison.
So the next big purchase that I bought is, of course, new house. You win, you gotta boss up now. Got the Range Rover, the Velar, the Velar was nice. It was smooth. It was just came out. I loved it. Black on black with the nice little, leather. I ran me about 80,000.
$80,000 for a Range Rover. Man, these athletes spend so much of their money. Like, don't you guys want this stuff to like last? Don't you want to like be able to live off of your money?
My oldest brother, Dr. Usman, is getting married. I was part of his wedding, getting married too. I'm glad that they were able to experience that, that I was able to experience those things.
I guess it's okay for him like helping out his brother, but still at the same time, it's like he's not really investing any of his money or even really saving any of his money.
Because now it's actually in front of you. It's just paper. But this paper created so many memories in those times. It's a feeling that you can't replace. You can't replicate that feeling. I'm totally grateful for this, but at the end of the day, it's just paper.
I mean, he's correct, it's just paper, but the reality of the situation, if you end up spending all of your money, if you end up spending all of your stuff on these different items without really investing any of your money, in comparison, it's not going to be a long, nice retirement because the reality, which many people may not know this, his body is getting massively destroyed in the fights. Not even by like damage being taken from the other fighters, because there's not really that many fighters that could really do much to him, but the damage that is done to his body during like training and all that kind of stuff, right, is beating his body so bad that it's hard for him to even walk normally, right? Like it's hard for him to even walk normally on sidewalk, on concrete, right? He typically has to walk on grass. So to keep that in mind and see that he's spending so much money like this worries me because that means that he is more than likely going to end up retiring from the UFC without really any money to his name, which would be very, very depressing to see because you want him to do extremely well. You want him to be able to retire with a lot of money. You want him to retire with a lot of money to be able to take care of his family because he wants to take care of his family. You can see it inside him. He wants to take care of his family. But if he keeps spending money like this, it's not going to end well. So I just really hope that he ends up changing his spending habits to lean more towards investing and saving, at least in terms of the ratio, right? Just flip the ratio and it'd be a lot better. If you want to learn how to get out of debt, go to 40inbox.com.